honestly, people seek me out because I'm a Black therapist, and I get the
How
same.
does that feel?
It feels good, because our people are recognizing the importance of mental health.
Got you.
And they try to do it delicately. It's like, I'm not racist, or I'm not. They try to slide that in, but and it's okay because across the board, we all have preferences.
Right.
When
Agreed.
I call and look for a doctor, I always look for a woman doctor because I'm a woman and I can relate. So I tell them that, like, it's okay. Like, you want somebody relatable, you want somebody kind of look like you, and that's fine. So people specifically, they're not looking at, okay, she went to Concordia, she went here. She's Black, she's a woman. I want her.
All right, so welcome back to another episode of the What's Your Motive podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest. She's actually my first therapist on the podcast. I'm so happy to have her, just with all the conversations that a lot of people are having nowadays about mental health, mental well-being, and in terms of utilizing the resources to become a better individual for yourselves and also to be able to clear our heads. She is the owner of Imani Counseling Services, LLC. She is part of the Black Clinicians Milwaukee, and she's also a fellow Mesmer grad.
Yes.
And one other thing I'm going to add is she is the wife of my dear friend, William Holloway, and business partner. So shout out to him. But please welcome Kia Holloway to the What's Your Motive podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
and
you for
being the first therapist.
Yes,
That's
thank you for
exciting.
being here. This is big. This is really, really huge, especially in terms of just trying to be resourceful to the people the audience or people that actually do listen to the podcast and watch the videos and things like that. So I'm just happy to have you.
Thank you.
Because you're right here in the community on a regular basis and doing things like that. So how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. Trying to hang in there, a little basketball today with the sun and things like that.
Of course.
The repass and things like that. So just trying to do those things and finally able to be home.
Yes.
And do some things like that. What about you?
Funeral, hair appointment.
Yeah.
I worked this morning, so it's been busy.
Always
busy.
working. So you even
Yes.
work on the weekend?
I do. Therapy does not stop.
You hear that? Like, see?
People need it on Saturdays too.
People need it on Saturdays too.
They
That's
do.
crazy. That's crazy now that I think about it when you just said that, because I don't know why I thought it was just like a Monday through Friday thing.
It can be whenever. I have colleagues who work on Sundays. They may see clients at 6 a.m. They will tailor their schedule to whatever the person needs. So I don't do Sundays, and I only do like every other Saturday. But people need it when they need it.
People need it when they need it. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So jumping right into this, let's start from the inception. Where did you grow up? Where did you from? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah. So I grew up here, born and raised in Milwaukee.
Okay.
I am the youngest of 3. My parents divorced when I was pretty young, so I don't really have a lot of memory of my dad being in the home, but, he was always around, so I visited him on the weekend. Mom, kind of worked quite a bit, so kind of growing up in the 80s, early 90s, I was a latchkey kid. So latchkey kid, so 3rd, 4th grade, got my key, coming home, and you do what you got to do. You don't open the door for strangers. You get your snack. You watch TV. Do your homework. But, it's kind of how I grew up.
The kids today, now I'm not going to say all of them, I don't think they understand what it was like to be a latchkey kid.
Not at all. Oh.
To be able to get off the bus or walk home, open the door, make your own snack. You know what I mean? Maybe even prepare your own dinner.
Absolutely. It was not even a thought. It wasn't scary. We can use the stove. You didn't think about danger and any of those things. You did it. That was your life.
So I know I'm jumping ahead. So this is making me think about something.
Go ahead.
What do you think that did to our mental in terms of us having that responsibility at young ages, like 3rd and 4th grade?
So I think it fostered a lot of independence.
Okay.
I would say tenacity. I think we were mentally tough, strong. You can handle quite a bit. Problem solving.
Yeah.
A lot of that. We weren't coddled a lot. I don't think we had the ability or the time to be coddled because our parents were at work. They loved us, but they had to work.
Right.
So we did what we had to do. And if there was an issue, we didn't have, a parent right there to call. Like, you had to figure it out.
Right. Homework and everything, right?
Homework and everything. Like, shoot. I got to figure this out. Or wait till mama come home, in the evening. Or
Right.
what am I going to eat? You can't call like, can you bring me some McDonald's? No, you have to figure out what's in the refrigerator and you made your food.
You made it work. Mm-hmm. And nowadays,
kids are spoiled.
are they spoiled or are they privileged?
You know what? Maybe a little bit of both. Definitely
of both.
privileged.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely privileged. A little bit of spoiled, but they don't have to do what we did.
Got you. No, for sure. I mean, times are different for sure.
Very much so.
But I know that, like you said, being a latchkey kid and having that responsibility was definitely more of a benefit to us, especially in terms of us growing up, right?
I would say, I wouldn't trade my experience for anything.
No, I hear that. So the grade school and even middle school and high school, you're pretty much the same thing in terms of doing that.
Absolutely. Caught the city bus to school. There was no dropping off, and you figured out what school bus or city bus to get there. You got home, and we were pretty independent.
Wow. What do you remember? Like your middle school teachers and things like that?
Some.
Okay, what middle school did you go to?
Samuel Morris.
My sister went there.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
she went there as well. So
Samuel Morris.
And you went there, you graduated from there, and then you went to Mesmer.
I did.
What was your Mesmer experience like?
Mesmer was different for me because I went to Samuel Morris. Morris was really big, and then I went to Mesmer, and it was so small. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
You're right.
this is really small. And then Morris was more multicultural, so we had a lot of Hmong, we had black, we had white. Going to Mesmer was mostly black kids, so it was kind of a culture shock.
Got you.
What is this?
Right.
It was a pretty good experience. It took a little while to get adjusted to, but it was so small. Like my graduating class maybe was 60.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really small.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. So did you find that? Did you find it more advantageous to have like the smaller or the bigger with Morris, or it really didn't matter for you because you were already kind of like motivated to do well?
It didn't really matter to me. I think there was pros to both. I was able to, the smaller, I think there was a little bit more attention to us. I would say that was a big pro. But it worked out.
Okay. Was it fun though? Was high school fun?
It was. It didn't start off fun.
Okay.
I had my issues.
Gotcha.
Little girl drama. She thinks she bad and this and that. But it ended up being really fun that I met like my lifelong friends in high school. So
still to this day.
To this day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what I always hope for, like a lot of the kids in school nowadays, to be able to forge those lasting friendships in high school and enjoy high school because like you're not grown yet, but you're a young adult, right?
Yes.
And you get a little freedom, but you also have the safety blanket at home. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where we're supposed to make those mistakes and become better and things like that. So
absolutely.
I'm glad to hear about that. So when did you, or what inspired you to become like a therapist?
So funny story. I did not initially want to be a therapist. I thought I was going to be a kindergarten teacher.
What?
Education, absolutely. I went to McDowell Montessori.
Oh, I have ties to that. Okay.
Really? Okay, from K3 through 5th grade. And I had Karen Woodbury, was my my elementary school teacher, kindergarten teacher. And she was wonderful. So I wanted to be like Miss Woodbury. And
what?
Through college, like I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. I did observation and participation. I did
So you went to school for that?
I went to school. I was at Whitewater. Like, this is my major. I was getting bussed here. I was observing classes. I took the PPST test for education. Like, I have a lot of education credits. Because this is what I want to do.
Right.
Got in the classroom. These kids were throwing up. They were tapping all over me. And I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. So I changed my major my junior year in college. To sociology. So yeah, people think I'm crazy for that, but I absolutely did because I realized I don't want to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to be in the helping field because that's naturally I'm a helper, but it was not going to be education. So that's how I ended up making the shift to becoming a therapist.
So you graduated Mesmer and you went to Whitewater.
I went to Whitewater.
To major in education.
And I changed it junior year.
And one of the main things that influenced your change, or some of the things, right, was going through the teacher observation phase.
Yes.
And seeing like this is what goes on in the classroom.
This is what goes on in the classroom, and I was not built for that.
Wow. Wow, that is crazy. So
Yes.
so you end up switching to sociology.
I did. 'Cause I mean, it still involves people and study of
Correct.
people. I'm thinking this is interesting. And then, continuing on in college, I'm thinking, okay, what can I transfer this to? And then it was therapy. Like I was always the kid that, friends felt safe with, they can come to. I felt like I kind of gave good advice. So it just naturally for me fit then. Like it's therapy. Like you want to be a therapist.
What?
That's how that worked.
So did you finish in the sociology track?
I did.
You
So
did finish that.
I have a BA in sociology and then end up in grad school with my MS in counseling.
And you went to
professional counseling.
Concordia for that.
Yes.
So what was that experience like going through that so after graduating with your sociology degree, what was it like as you continued down the master's of in psychology? Or I'm sorry.
Professional counseling.
Professional counseling, sorry.
So it was a pretty natural fit.
Okay.
It was a pretty natural fit. It was pretty cool in Concordia. Once you get into the master's level, like the classes are pretty much tailored toward what you want to do. So not all the fluff
Gotcha.
in undergrad. So it was a good fit. Learned quite a bit. Had some pretty good teachers.
And then, so like, I'm just interested. So like when you were taking the courses, when you took courses, were there particular courses about family therapy and teen therapy and things like that? Was it separated or was it like kind of like all together?
So we didn't have anything with teen. We did like some family therapy. You have things about like trauma.
Okay.
You do like child. They didn't do the teen, but you do like some child, smaller kid stuff. So yeah, they kind of break it up like that for you.
Okay. So once you finished and you graduated, what did you end up doing initially once you graduated?
So to be a therapist, you graduate, but then you still have 3,000 hours that you have to complete before you even can get a license. So I ended up at the Benedict Center, where I worked as an alcohol and drug counselor. That was interesting.
I was just going to say, okay.
Very, very interesting because there you see lots of trauma. You see lots of everything. And it was a women's program. So there I worked and got my 3,000 hours. And then, you take your license test. So that's where I was there for a couple of years. And then I transitioned to some other places before finally landing on my own practice.
And then, so you had to, in order to get your license, you had to go through that. You had to get that experience. Now, did you have to have like someone kind of like supervise those hours and sign off on those things?
Yeah, so a psychiatrist who contracted with them was the person who, Dr. Bone, I remember him, he signed off on my hours to get my license while I was working there.
What was it like your first time, like being at the Benedict Center? Like, what was it like when you walked in there, like, okay, I'm here?
It was mind-blowing. Like, I'm this 20-something-year-old young lady walking in here, and these are women who, I mean, we're talking about prostitution, years of drug use, like anything that you can imagine people go through, you find at the Benedict Center. So, again, I'm like 24 or 25 coming in, hearing stories like, oh, that really happened, or wow, like you have a pimp. Like, I mean, just the stories, and it was amazing. And, they know I'm young, too.
Right.
So some of them had an issue with me, like, this little person over here don't know anything about anything. So I had to really kind of, earn their trust to even come talk to me, because, like, what do I know? I just graduated from school.
Right.
So it was mind-blowing being there. I learned so much, and just about life.
Right.
Like stuff you see on TV, it's like, no, this is real life. People are actually living on the street. People actually have pimps. People actually, whatever. Anything you can imagine, you hear at the Benedict Center.
And then with you being fresh out, right? And you're gaining this experience, you hearing these stories, so it kind of like grows you up a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
What is your mental like hearing these stories, even at that young age? Like, what is your mental like? Like, hold on, like, did it make sense? Were you able to kind of like see through it and try to make connections based on the academic pieces that you learned?
Yeah, so in a way, but if this makes sense, nothing you learn in a counseling program really prepares you for real life. So it's like some of that book stuff just kind of went out the window.
Thank you. Understood.
they like, whatever, I don't care about Freud and this and that. Like, this is my real life. So yeah, you can connect some of the pieces, but a lot of that stuff went out the window. It's like, oh, no, this is real life, and I have to really connect with these women on a human level. Forget the book level, like human to human. I need some help, and can you help me? I don't care about what you learned
Right.
at school.
That says a lot, because that's that. I think they call it the qualitative piece, right? Because you're actually in the field, you're actually engaging with these individuals, but you can anchor yourself on the academia pieces, but you actually have to lean on your actual perspective as a human being, and then listening to this person and trying to dissect that as this person to person type of interaction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So okay. So just like in education, I know we have to forge relationships with students and different people. In therapy, is there like a relationship piece as well that has to be forged? Especially like, okay, so I take that back, because I know you have to forge relationships, but like in that setting, when you were that young, did you feel like, okay,
Even in that setting, in any setting like that, and really, therapy would not, the most important piece in the therapeutic relationship is the relationship, and how successful a person is in therapy is the relationship with their therapist. It's not the modality you use, it's not how many degrees, it's the relationship, and that's how well they'll do if they're connected with their therapist.
Wow, that's crazy. At 20 years old, hearing all that, man.
It was like, I used to come home like, ooh, wow.
And so you go from there, and then you get your hours and things like that, and then you go into your own private practice?
Not immediately.
Okay.
I worked for set ministry. I worked in it's almost like I was a therapist in a school, so almost like school counseling, but like school therapy. So I did that for a little bit. I worked as a independent contractor doing therapy for a couple different agencies, and then I finally transitioned into my own practice.
Okay. What made you want to have your own practice or start your own practice?
So I've never really been a person that worked well for someone.
Got you.
So my mom would, when I was little, she told me, she's like, you either will have to marry someone rich or have your own business. So I did the latter. Because, as a teen, I never really worked well under people. I could do it, but
Right, for sure.
I prefer my own thing. I can control how much money I make. I can control the clientele that I bring in. I control my hours. So that just is so much more appealing to me. So that's why I went that route.
That's why you went that route. So were you working a job like prior to?
Prior to my own.
Yeah.
So I was an independent contractor.
Oh, so you're
was,
right.
Yeah, so that was like the closest you can kind of get to being your own, because they're not really micromanaging you. So I'm contracted, but I'm not like a W-2 employee, but you're still like under somebody's practice.
Oh, okay, got you. So that makes sense then. And like you said, you had to go into it for yourself, because you was like, I'm not working for nobody.
No, I don't want to work for anybody.
And then, and it's called Imani Counseling Services,
Yes.
correct? Is there a meaning behind the name, or?
There is. So, I have a daughter named Imani, but that's not the reason.
And
why.
that's why I thought.
A lot of people think that.
Got you.
So Imani means faith in Swahili.
Got you.
And it's one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. So for me, anytime somebody comes into therapy, there has to be a measure of faith, right? Even if you're like, okay, I'm really sad, and I don't know if I can make it, but I'm gonna just try. That's faith.
Got you.
So for me, just having just an ounce of faith can make a huge difference. So that's why it's Imani Counseling Services. So it's faith.
Got you. Faith-based, and that being kind of like the cornerstone of it, right? And that's where we start from, like you said, that belief.
The first step is faith.
Wow. So, as a Black therapist, right?
Yes, sir.
Having your own therapy services, are there any unique experience what are some unique experiences you've had like in this space, like
Just as
whether
a Black therapist?
Yes.
So honestly, people seek me out because I'm a Black therapist, and I get the
How
same.
does that feel?
It feels good because our people are recognizing the importance of mental health.
Got you.
And they try to do it delicately. It's like, I'm not racist, or I'm not. They try to slide that in, but and it's okay, because and across the board, we all have preferences.
Right.
When
Agreed.
I call and look for a doctor, I always look for a woman doctor because I'm a woman and I can relate. So I tell them that, like, it's okay. Like, you want somebody relatable, you want somebody to kind of look like you, and that's fine. So people specifically, they're not looking at, okay, she went to Concordia, she went here. She's black, she's a woman, I want her. Because stepping out and getting help for your mental health is already scary. But if the person looks like me, it kind of takes some of that sting off.
And that's so real. And even like I was talking to some guys before, and I was just like, I gave it a try.
Good.
But the only thing is, I gave it a try virtually.
Okay.
And when I took try to do the virtual session, ended up being a Caucasian guy.
Okay.
And I was like, fine, it's a male. You know what I mean? However, my experience is a little bit different, and maybe it was because it was virtual. Where like I was talking, but I didn't feel like I had that attentiveness.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I know that face to face, you're garnering that attention you're getting that attention from each other, right? But are there like why do you think there's a problem, or why is it sometimes a struggle for people to be vulnerable, to be able to speak to a therapist sometimes, or even feel as if they're being heard?
So
I know you said relationships for sure, though.
Yeah. So, and a lot of it too, because there's such a stigma around mental health. So it's hard to be vulnerable if you're thinking that I'm crazy for even being here. Because again, if I have a mental health issue, then of course I'm crazy, because that's what society has kind of put on mental health. So, and then there's the trust factor too, because if I tell you too much, okay, what are you going to do with this information?
Right.
Are you going to take my kids? Are you going to call the police? Are you going to do something? So, and then I'll even jump further with males, because I have a lot of clients, but probably 98% are women. I don't get a lot of men coming. And vulnerability in men is a whole different topic, which we can go off on. But men, they have to be tough, right? Because that's what society tells you. You got to be tough. If you show too much emotion, then you soft, or you zesty, or you something.
Right.
So it's tough with that.
So you find it that, there's more women than men that actually seek therapy. And then
Across the board.
And then what's crazy is, now I'm thinking about that, especially like you said, men have to put up the stoic look. We got to be sure, we got to be matter of fact. I think one of my buddies said one time, like, even if we don't know the answer, if we can't figure out that, we got to look like
you got to look like you know the answer.
We got to look like it. And do you think a lot of that, like we said, based on society, but how much is that attributed to like either having a father that perpetuates that, and not having a father to kind of like guide you through that, where it's more so like by a mom, and you get the emotional side is what is pretty much said to be how a boy might be raised, right?
Absolutely. So our home life definitely can play a part, in that too. Of course, we said society can, get into that. But yeah, if you do have a little boy who grew up with a mom and didn't have a dad, and, mom is kind of molded him one way, you will see some, differences in how he responds versus maybe a boy who did have a father. And sometimes,
right.
There's no, 100% across the board, but, our upbringing does play a role, can play a role.
And what's crazy? When I think about that, I think like, even if you do have, and I'm specifically talking about like a young boy, even if you do have like a father in a home, right? And, a lot of times they say like, they'll help you become a man, right?
Yeah.
But if that man that's trying to help you become a man didn't have a man or a figure, you know what I'm saying? So it really is like, when we talk about like generational traumas, it does start there, and it's hard to kind of like undo it and unlearn it, right?
Because it keeps getting passed down.
But therapy, like we were talking off the camera, sometimes it's looked at as like a last resort, as opposed to being something proactive. Why do you think that is?
And I go back to the stigma, because therapy means that something is really wrong with me, and no one wants to think that something is wrong with them.
Right.
So I don't want to feel that way. I'm going to try to do it myself. I'm gonna try everything else. And I've had people say, I tried everything else, so here I am. It's like, you could have tried this a long time ago. And if we are more proactive, I think we'll see, a bigger difference in people because, if you come to therapy after you've been depressed for 5 or 6 months, and now we're trying to dig yourself out of that hole, it's so much harder versus, when you saw those, because the body will tell you when something, yourself, right? I tell people, I may be the expert in therapy, but you're the expert in yourself. You know when something is wrong with you. So if you would have caught this, a month in when you've been crying every day, you couldn't get out of bed. Start therapy then. Don't wait 5, 6, 7 months. Just like it's like a car. You don't wait till your car stop running to go to see what's going on.
Get the oil change.
You're proactive.
Your tires. You get them
That.
rotated.
The same with us.
Man, it's crazy because so like you've been doing therapy for so long, right? And I remember being young, and it was like therapy was like either for crazy people or for soft people, but you've seen other demographics of people actually, utilizing. I think if you looked at like Seinfeld, didn't he used to go lay down and talk to the shrink and things like that? And I never really understood that until I got older. And I was just like, man, like, are we really that behind the 8 ball in terms of recognizing and understanding the well-being and the necessity for being able to talk to somebody about what you're going through? Yeah. And I'm assuming that's something systemic. That's something
systemic. Just think about too. A lot of Black families, what goes on in your home, it stays in your home.
Right.
So that you taught that as a little kid. You grow up, but that's like what goes on in your home stays. So I can't go to a stranger and tell them what's going on.
And then you hold those secrets, and those secrets can definitely just run through your mind on a daily basis. You're triggered by seeing this person that may have done something to somebody that you told not to say anything about.
Yeah. Because what goes on, it's just quiet, zip. But those secrets can be poison.
And that's still going on today.
Absolutely.
Like you know what I mean?
Yes.
And and I think obviously we're adults now, and we still deal with those things, but I always wonder about and I worry about like the kids, like even in education or just, and I'm sure when you talking to kids or teens or whatnot, they come to your services, you always think about them and trying to get them so early where their mind is still, you can still comply it and move it and mold it, because it's very challenging to unlearn a lot of things.
Yes.
And even to like let yourself go.
Yes.
So even for somebody to come talk to you is like a huge hurdle.
Very much so.
And have you found yourself having to like change your approach to different clients that come to you based on maybe their thoughts about therapy, or maybe a certain instance, maybe they had a bad therapist experience prior to you?
So I have a lot of different clients, and my approach to them are all different. So part of my job is I learn all of my clients, and I don't approach any of them really the same because they're all different. So it's not an easy thing to do because it's like, okay, this person I can be a little bit more tougher with her. She's a little bit more softer, but you learn them. So that's part of my job when they're coming in and I'm assessing them. I figure out their personalities and whatnot, how I can approach her, how I can do this, how I can do that. So absolutely, everybody gets a different approach.
And then, okay, so now I know that you're a professional at it now. So like, for some, is it like instantaneously at the first day, or is it sometimes it takes a couple sessions?
Sometimes it takes a couple sessions. Sometimes you can catch them right off the bat, like, okay, I can see how this person is. But some people, it takes a couple sessions.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I just always think about that. Like, what is it like being a therapist and really trying to sift through some of the things that people say? So, like, even like for couples, I can only imagine like what a couple session could be about.
Wild.
Like, because you got, either the boyfriend saying one thing and the girlfriend saying one thing, or the husband and the wife. Like, how do you kind of like try to maintain this neutral stance, but also help them see the logistical side and what's really going on? Like, because so I'm sure sometimes you got to be, do you find yourself having to be like a referee sometimes?
Sometimes. Couple sessions can get wild. And you have to set really good boundaries with couples because they're, and sometimes it's like, okay, stop. You have to go in there and like, okay, you guys have to stop. Okay, that was kind of rude. And I said,
what? You have to do that?
You have to kind of do that. But for me, I try to set the boundaries in the beginning. Like, okay, before we come in, there are no low blows. You can't say this. You can't do that. we're gonna let everybody talk. So you have to be really strict in couple sessions.
Got you. Have you had any personal experiences that shaped the way that you approach therapy? Anything personal or anything that you kind of like going through, anything like that? Anything personal?
Um, I just say who I am as a person. I think just in general just shapes how I approach therapy. I think my upbringing, I don't know if I was taught or if it's kind of innate or both, just to be like an empathetic, caring person. And that's just kind of who I've always been. So for me, that is my approach to therapy, just being able to be empathetic, which as a therapist you should be, and just being gracious, with my clients. So just that in and of itself, which is who I am, it helps me, when I'm working with my clients. And that's just how I approach everybody.
Got you. So another question I've been meaning to ask, so like, do therapists need therapists?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And how do you go about even like, with you knowing like so many things, so many strategies, you know what I'm saying? Like I was thinking about this question 2 days ago. I was just like, does a therapist need a therapist? And how do you go about like trying to find that person, or, you know what I mean?
So, I mean, the same methods, using directories. Obviously, like, so if you're in a smaller place like Milwaukee and you're like looking for a Black therapist, it's a little tougher because there's not a whole bunch of us. But you use directories and word of mouth. You may call your
Wow.
insurance company and say, hey, I need a therapist. Can you give me a list? But let's keep in mind, therapists are human. Therapists have depression. Therapists have anxiety. There are therapists with bipolar disorder. There are therapists with OCD. So yeah, they need a therapist. And too, they grieve. They've lost. They hear a lot throughout the day. So sometimes they need somebody to be able to pour, that out too. So absolutely.
So that's great, and I'm glad you explained that to me, because I always think about that, because I think sometimes we forget that the experts in therapy or whatever it is, they're still humans, like
Absolutely.
you said, they're still human beings. So even you being a mom and a wife and things like that, do you find yourself, and this is just something, this is kind of nerdy what I'm thinking about. Do you find yourself like diagnosing yourself as situations take place, or like as you're going through your own personal stressors? So let's just say you worked long and you came home and something's not right, you know what I'm saying, you know what I mean? Or I just think about that, like, do you find yourself like, okay, I know what that is, or it's just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I feel like if I was a therapist, I'd be like, yep, I know what that is. That's this trigger. I need to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes it's not right away in the moment, but after you sit down and process, like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, this is what that means. So you do.
I can only imagine. I'm telling you, I'll be diagnosing myself. I'll be reflecting, like, yeah, I need to put that in a journal. You know what I'm saying? So
I do have a journal. Absolutely.
You do?
I do. It's just right on my nightstand.
And that leads to my next question. Like, what are some small, like, but impactful ways people can like prioritize their mental health and kind of like deal with it, or sorry, not deal with it, but like navigate it?
Yeah, so I'm always gonna say get a therapist. If you need a therapist, get a therapist. Your life doesn't have to be catastrophic either to get a therapist. Like, get a therapist. Things like journaling. Journaling is a great anxiety reducer, because a lot of times we're in our head a lot, and then you put it on paper and it gets it from here to paper. So journal, meditation, sometimes just being still. For me, I'm great at just being still. My brain is constantly moving, whether I'm in a therapist's office or I'm at home, my brain is constantly moving, which makes me physically tired. So for me, I have to just sit still. Sometimes I'm just in the bed and I'm just still. I don't want to think too hard. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to move. I am just laying there and I'm being still. And I have a lot of clients, well, I can't be still. I got to move. And it's like, you should practice it sometimes.
Right.
Just be still. Don't move.
And I think like as you, when I'm just listening to you say that now, like, I think a lot of times we are just like in our heads, and we're always going, we're always thinking, what's the next thing we have to do?
Planning.
Yes, planning, trying to figure out, oh, I'm responsible for this. I got to pick such and such up. I got to drop this off. I got to make food. Such and such needs to do this. We need to fill this out for such and such. You know what I mean? And all those things. But like you said, just being still for a minute.
Just be still. And it's okay. It's like, well, I don't want to feel lazy. It's like, it's okay. You're not lazy. You're just tired. You're tired. Just think about, like you just said, you got basketball, you got the repass, you got this, you got that. somebody has to go to work, somebody has to get picked up. It's constant moving. Your brain is constantly planning and going and going. That's tiring.
So for somebody that may not know or may not be aware of what's going on with them, like what are some signs that's like you need to seek some therapy?
Okay. So some of the even basic ones, look at your appetite. Is your appetite decreasing lately, or has it
Right.
increased? Your sleep patterns. Have you been oversleeping? Have you been undersleeping? Have you been irritable more lately? You know, like, dang, I have been snapping. When I go through these questions with my clients, they're like, dang, I have been a little irritable lately. Dang, I have been sleeping a little bit more, or I haven't been sleeping a lot. I've been waking up every hour. Stuff like that. Focus, concentration. Have those been off?
Wow. And then I'm thinking about that, like I've experienced those. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I've experienced those. I mean, even like not being able to sleep the full night. You know, where you find yourself like, hold on, it's 3:40,
And
I
I'm
still
up.
got time. Like, why am I up?
Yeah, and I'm up, and I'm up.
But
And people brush those off a little bit. Like, I'm just, that's just nothing. That's nothing. But like, if it keeps going on and on, like, hey, I may need to. What's going on? Am I anxious? Maybe I'm depressed. And depression symptoms get overlooked so much because people can function with them. Like, I get up, I go to work, I'm getting dressed, all of this stuff. But it's like, as we're going through the symptoms, it's like, no, but you got all the symptoms of depression. You just functioning with it.
You just hit something on the head. So like, I don't know. Isn't it? I think it's a thing called like a functional addict, right? Like where it's almost like being a functional addict. Like
Absolutely.
I'm able to function while being depressed, while being able to but it's your body's going to tell on you.
Absolutely, because watch your sleep patterns, watch your appetite, watch all these things. Your body is telling you you're depressed, but you're still getting up, you're still taking care of your kids, you're still going to work, you're still doing all these things, but you got all these depression symptoms. So you can function with it, but people miss it because they're functioning.
And that's crazy because I always wonder, like, how are we on autopilot? You ever, I had this instance a couple times where I was driving to work, but I didn't know how I got there.
You
Like,
dissociated. You
Right?
dissociated, yeah.
But I was there. Like, my body knew this is my regimen. I get up, I go on, and before I knew it, I was there, but I had other stuff on my mind. Like, I'm sure that's a sign.
Something's going on, right? I've done it too. Like, oh, I've missed my house. I end up on somebody's
Yeah.
whole block. Like, oh, shoot.
You missed the turn.
Yeah.
And even though that seems like kind of subtle, I think that's why a lot of people overlook it because it's just like, oh no, I'm just tired.
I'm just
it's
tired.
easy to
I'm
like cast
overworked.
it, easy to like cast it off. And then now, what's funny is, we get, when we start, the uptick of like talking about mental health, right, came about, and then now you start having jobs where it's like, take a mental health day.
Yes.
How important do you think that was for like society as a whole to be able to be like, I'm taking off, it's a mental health day?
I'm so excited by it. It's a beautiful thing, and I would say since COVID really blew the lid off of, it's like almost chic now to have a therapist. Like, my therapist, but COVID really blew the lid off of mental health because people had to sit at home with themselves. It's like, ooh,
And with their families.
and with their families.
And not to be mean, but like,
No, seriously, because I had more referrals for couples counseling during COVID than I ever had in my entire career.
is that because they had to like legit sit with each other all this time? I think we don't realize how, and I don't know how this is gonna come off.
It's
Kia.
okay.
I don't think we realized how helpful. I'm gonna say that little time away from like your spouse and your family while you're at work or while they're
It's very
asleep.
helpful. I'll be married for 20 years next month. It's
Congratulations.
very helpful. Thank you.
You're right.
That's work.
You're right.
It's very helpful to have that space. But when you're at home all day, you start noticing all those little habits like, ooh, you do that? Huh.
Everything becomes like amplified, right?
With your spouse, with your kids. So everybody was trying to get in therapy 2020, and it's still on the rise, which is great. But yeah,
It shed a huge light on the demographic, like just with people in general. Like,
yep. And then celebrities have been coming out too, talking about their mental health journey.
Yep.
So that's really helpful too. Like, oh, well, so and so, Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and all these people talking about mental health. So
Yep.
that's really helped
About
as
the
well.
things they went through. That does shed a light on the importance of protecting your mental health.
Yes.
Especially, we know these athletes work hard on a daily basis, and if they don't perform, you know, and even going into a performance.
Absolutely, it's a lot of pressure.
Like, have you ever had to help out like any athletes, like young athletes or anything like that?
Older, not super young, but yeah, I have. And I have a colleague who is a sports psychologist. So they have therapists out there. You were on Kwaku.
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite
he's a
cool.
sports psychologist, because I mean, that's demanding he was at the Olympics and he was working with them. I could even imagine competing at that level, just that pressure to perform. So yeah, it's just a lot.
And anxiety, is that a symptom, or is that like how do we categorize anxiety? So
anxiety is a diagnosis,
Okay.
right? It can be depending on the symptomology. So there are symptoms that you have to meet to get a diagnosis of anxiety. But we all get anxiety.
Right.
So it's on a spectrum.
Got
So,
you.
Get anxious, public speaking. Oh, I'm anxious. But when it becomes problematic or you start getting these different symptoms, then it can cross into an actual diagnosis.
Got you. So I know that we talked about like a little bit about the faith part in regards to your practice and things like that. What impact does like faith and spirituality have on like African American mental health? What do you think about that?
I think it's huge. One thing that I've noticed that with a lot of my clients who have faith or have some sort of belief, whether they're Muslim or Christian or whatnot, they seem to fare better from my experience in therapy because they have that faith and they have a belief system. They don't come in as hopeless. I would say some of my other clients who may not have any belief system. So it's like, I believe in God or I believe in whoever they believe in, whatever their belief system, they tend to do better in therapy.
Because they have that kind of like that foundation.
Yeah, they have the foundation,
belief.
that faith. And it's like, I know I'm going to get better. I don't know how yet, but I know I'm going to get better.
And it's easier. I'm assuming that's easier to get them to kind of like trust the process as well and be a lot more vulnerable because they have the faith that I'm in the right place. This is what I should be doing. I'm not only praying about this, but I'm actually speaking to somebody, meaning I'm putting forth the action to try to be better too.
Absolutely.
And we know that, faith without works is dead,
dead,
right? So I like that aspect in regards to that. I just always wonder like how that kind of like coincide and tied into each other because like you said, I can only imagine some people being hopeless and not having anything to kind of like anchor themselves on, and it ends up ultimately leading to them, self-harming themselves.
Sometimes,
or things like that. Especially, being in education, we dealt with so many kids that were like, cutting themselves, trying to overdose on things like that. And but I also know that we have adults that's doing the same thing and they suffer in silence.
Yes.
So much. So like, what advice would you give to someone who's like afraid to even start therapy?
I know it's easier said than
I
done,
know.
but it's just like, you don't have to be afraid.
Right.
That's always my thing. Like, you don't have to be afraid. There are some wonderful therapists out there who just want you to come in. Like, you don't have to tell anybody what you're going through. It could, we're professional secret keepers. We don't tell, we're professional secret keepers. We don't tell your business. It's our job to create a safe space. That's what I always tell my clients. This is your safe space. So even if the world is, nutty and chaotic for this hour, this is your safe space. Like, just make the call, even if you don't really care for the, session or whatnot. Just try it out. Just come try it.
Just try it out for the sake of your well-being.
Absolutely, because you're not going to be good to yourself or to anybody if you're continuously suffering.
And it's funny or interesting more so. One of my buddies actually, he found his mother deceased one time, and I seen him spiral, and I know a lot of it was a shock.
Absolutely.
So it absolutely had to be like a traumatic event for him, which definitely shocked his brain, right? And it was like I could see him wallowing. I would check in on him, and I'm like, man, you probably need to see somebody. And he did tell me that he ended up seeing somebody, and he got better. But I also know that like sometimes he vacillates, so it'll go back to that dark space, and it's like, are you being proactive? Are you staying with it? And I know it can be hard. Have you ever had clients that like came consistently and drop off?
Oh,
and
yes.
then I have to come back again and try. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because the thing is, they come in therapy and that session is good or whatnot, and they're doing their tools, but they got to go back out into the real
That's
world.
the part, right?
Yeah, so they go back into that environment, and it's hard, Just like I'm sure you see with the kids, and they come to school, and you guys are loving on them, they're doing good, but then they got to go back home, and they go back to that environment that's not really pouring into them. So you can only do what you can in that environment where you have them.
Right.
So we do see them, and then sometimes when I know people don't like to talk about this, I have people who are pro therapy, but they do not want to talk about medication. It's like,
Talk about it.
ooh.
Talk about it.
Some of our people need medication, and I'm not a big medication pusher,
For
but I
sure.
know the benefits of what it can do. Because for some people, therapy alone just isn't enough. It just isn't. There may be a chemical imbalance going on, and they may need some medication for a little bit to stabilize them.
Right.
So sometimes that's a conversation that we need to have. Maybe you have to keep vacillating. Like maybe you need some medication.
Right.
Maybe this just isn't enough.
So expounding on that, two things. The medication piece, right? I think, and you tell me your thoughts from our minority population, right? I think based on some things that have happened or have said to be happened in the past, right? With the medication overdiagnosis and things like that. Would you say that you still think there's like some residue from the feeling as if, oh, you just trying to put me on medication as, to be, to kind of like denigrate me, you know what I mean? And trying to kind of, you know what I'm saying? Do you think that's still going on in terms, I think that's why because I know a lot of parents in schools
Oh yeah.
are really like, no, don't put my baby
Don't
on
do that.
thing,
Yeah, so some of it I do believe is a trust thing. Again, there's the stigma around medication because you really saying I'm crazy if you put me on medication. I'll do the therapy, but the medication is too far. But then, for some people, again, it's just a stigma. It's not even really the trust thing because I have people who I've met with, they're on a slew of medication for their physical health. Like they take medication for everything,
Right.
but they will not take it for their mental health. It's like, but you take medication for everything: blood pressure, diabetes, gout, everything.
You're right.
But they will not touch an antidepressant or psychotic or whatnot.
Right.
So it's just a stigma around it. Like that's too far. That makes me feel too crazy.
Right, to be able to be on some meds like that because it makes them really feel like they're crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that's a stigma
It's
or
a stigma.
whatnot. Because like, oh, you on crazy meds?
Yep,
You
the
know
crazy
what I mean?
pill.
The crazy pill.
Yeah.
So that's why people end up feeling like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Being in this space, the therapy space, I know that you're part of the Black Clinicians Milwaukee. How important is that collaboration, and what was that like in terms of you guys forging that?
So that's super important. So I'm one of the co-founders of Black Clinicians Milwaukee. So the thing is, we have all, these different Black therapists throughout, Milwaukee, but everybody was kind of like in silos. We didn't know everybody. So this was good to get us all in one kind of place so that we can refer to one another. We can collaborate sometimes. Hey, somebody. So that was really the main reason. And then there's a lot of people in Milwaukee will go on Facebook and were like, I need a Black therapist. And people would kind of like say, well, try here. But it's like, who are these people? So like,
Right.
It was cool to have this group of people. And then we created a directory.
You're right.
'Cause everybody in Milwaukee was like, we need a directory. Like, I'm sick of all these tags here.
Right.
So then that's when we created the directory so we can have one place for it. So it's been an amazing experience. Just to get everybody kind of out of these little separate silos and just working together, and then being able to produce this directory for people in Milwaukee to seek out therapy.
So you were seeing like people like on Facebook looking for Black therapists, probably people reaching out to you and things like that, and you decided to try to formulate like this directory and this
Yes.
coalition of people. Because I know a lot of people feel as if Milwaukee lacks resources.
Big time.
Right.
I hear that a lot.
And then we take a step further and we talk about mental health, and it's like, okay, well, I'm interested in mental health. I'm interested in therapy. I'm interested in therapy, but where do I even go?
Right.
And like you said, I want somebody that looks like me, right? So for you to create that, and I like the fact that you even said like, working in all these silos, we need to be more collaborative.
Right.
And we can refer to one another. And we should be doing this for the holistic impact of the entire community that we serve, as opposed to you doing your thing over there, I'm doing my thing over here. We don't talk, we don't communicate.
Exactly.
You know, like, how important was that to you in regards to, like, this collaboration is necessary?
That's huge to me. I mean, I just love collaboration. Like, you know, it's enough out here for everybody. We don't have to be separate. Like, let's get together. It's like, and just, you know, be a unit.
Right.
Know? Like, you may have some knowledge that I don't have. I may have some. Let's share it. Let's, you know, be resourceful together. And I mean, together we can grow bigger and help the community, you know. So it was huge for me. I love, you know, that we were able to create this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my hope is, and that's why I'm glad that you came on and even, you know, talk about your therapy journey, but also the fact that about Black Clinicians Milwaukee, and the reasoning behind it is because I've been on this podcast, what I've really been trying to do is trying to find out, like, who's actually trying to work together, you know, who's trying to do away with the silos and really trying to come together as a community and impact the people that we say we are serving.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you're doing something over here and I'm doing something over here. Like, where's the togetherness?
Where's the togetherness?
Actually, I think it's a bigger impact that way.
It's a much bigger impact, right?
So that's what, like, when I listened to you guys' interview on WNOV.
Okay.
As well, and obviously, you know, Holloway keeps you up to speed on everything. But when I heard about Black Clinicians Milwaukee, I've referred multiple people.
Yes, keep on.
So I'm sure, and I respect confidentiality. So I know a lot of people have reached out to a variety of people on there, and
we appreciate.
I'm just happy to be able to have that as a resource.
Yes.
Be like, oh no, I know somebody you can go to, or here, check this directory, because a lot of people do say, like, I want a therapist, but I do want them to be African American.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So. Shout out to you guys for doing that.
Thank you
You know
so
what I mean?
much.
That's a huge thing. So before we get out of here, my final question that I ask everybody: what's your motive?
What is my motive? You know, my motive is really to help and serve. Like I said, even when I thought that I wanted to be an educator, it was really just to help kids. And I realized that wasn't me. But now, you know, it's to help people with their mental health so that they can live a full life. You know, we push physical health so much, and we should always do that. But mental health is health. You know, we are a complete whole being. You know, we can't separate the two.
Got you.
What happens physically affects us mentally. What happens mentally affects us, you know, physically. So, you know, my motive is to educate. You know, a lot of people don't even know, hey, is my insurance cover mental health? Talk to me. I can help you with that.
Right.
Educate. I want people to know that they don't have to feel hopeless. That they're not crazy, that, sometimes you may feel depressed, but, you know, here go some tools, you know, this is how I can do it. So, you know, my motive is to serve my community the best way that I can, and, you know, try to help eradicate the stigma around
Yes, absolutely.
So we can get out here and just be the best that we can be as a community, as a people, as a whole world.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I truly, truly appreciate you being able to come on and kind of like talk to the people about, you know, therapy, the different strategies, some of the misconceptions, why it's important, some of the things that are actually truly going on and that people actually have, you know, some apprehensions about in regards to therapy. But more importantly, just speaking it from your perspective, the expert perspective, and showing people the importance of collaboration.
Yes, very big.
But more importantly, the importance of listening to yourself and listening to your body. So thank you for coming through.
You're welcome.
If people want to find you, where can they find you?
So I have a website. They can find me at www.imanicounselingservices.com. I'm just one person. I can't take everybody. So our Black Clinicians Milwaukee page is www.blackcliniciansmilwaukee.com.
Yeah. Alrighty. So you make sure that you guys check her out, and also check out the blackclinicians.com website as well if you need some services. But until next time, what's your motive? Mm-hmm. Peace.